She can't get the pretty pony.
Pretty pony.
And I would dearly love a prune Danish to go with it.
Coming up.
Who gets a prune?
A prune Danish. That's very funny. Thanks.
Remember when network execs looked at a perfectly good TV show and thought, you know what this needs? A spin-off that nobody asked for. Yep, Gen X lived through more of those than we'd like to admit. Today, we're counting down 5 shows that prove sometimes the apple doesn't just fall far from the tree, it rolls downhill, skips a few states, and gets flattened by a Buick. Before we dive into this parade of baffling creative choices, smash that like button and subscribe. We promise our content is more entertaining than anything you're about to see, and stick around for number 2, the spin-off that made fans wish the original had stayed cancelled. Alright, let's get into it with number 5, the new WKRP in Cincinnati, a spin-off of WKRP in Cincinnati, Syndicated.
I'm living on the air in Cincinnati. WKRP.
The original WKRP in Cincinnati worked because it knew exactly what it was. A scrappy workplace comedy with lovable misfits, quick wit, and the occasional flying turkey.
The humanity! Running about, the turkeys are hitting the ground like sacks of wet cement.
It had sharp writing, a cast with real chemistry, and enough heart to make you root for a bunch of radio weirdos just trying to stay on the air. So when someone brought it back in 1991, 9 years after the original ended, fans were cautiously optimistic. How hard could it be to recapture the magic? Turns out, harder than it looked.
Oh, Jennifer, I'd like for you to meet Donovan Adahold, our new program director. He just got here and now he's got to go too.
The new WKRP in Cincinnati brought back 3 original cast members. Gordon Jump, the Maytag man himself, as clueless station manager Arthur Carlson, Frank Bonner as boorish ad man Herb Tarlek, and Richard Sanders as obsessive newsman Les Nessman. Sounds promising. Until you realize they were the only ones who actually stuck around. Howard Hesseman's Johnny Fever, Lonnie Anderson's Jennifer Marlowe, and Tim Reed's Venus Flytrap all made quick guest appearances, but not much more. Jan Smithers, who played Bailey Quarters, and Gary Sandy, who played Andy Travis, never showed up at all. It was like trying to bring back the Beatles with just Ringo and a couple of interns. The new characters were as forgettable as the station's elevator music. We got Nancy, the bubbly morning host, played by Marla Rubinoff, Donovan, the serious program director, played by Michael T. Williamson, and Mona Loveland, the sultry late-night DJ, played by actress and video vixen Tawny Katane. And speaking of music, what made the original WKRP feel real was the soundtrack. They used actual hit songs, which gave the show energy and authenticity.
Yeah, a little.
Baby, if you've ever wondered.
The reboot used generic royalty-free filler that made you wonder if the station had gone full smooth jazz by mistake. The writing tried to recreate old gags without understanding why they worked. Yes, they referenced the turkey drop more than once, but it felt less like a callback and more like someone explaining a joke you had to be there for 10 years ago. Tone-wise, the original balanced ridiculous antics with genuine heart. These were lovable losers you wanted to hang out with. The new WKRP felt more like a training video with a laugh track. Somehow, it limped through 2 seasons in syndication before getting pulled in 1993, and by the end, even longtime fans weren't tuning in anymore. As Les Nessman might say, this just in, some shows should stay off the air.
Don't you know who I am, huh? I'm Les Nessman. I won the Buckeye News Hawk Award last year.
Because nostalgia can't fix what's missing, especially when what's missing is almost everything that made the original great. Number 4, Fish spinoff of Barney Miller, ABC. Barney Miller was one of the smartest, driest comedies of the 1970s. Set in a gritty Greenwich Village precinct, it found humor in bureaucracy, human nature, and painfully slow paperwork. The writing was sharp, the characters felt lived in, and the show never dumbed things down. Among the standouts was Detective Phil Fish, played by Abe Vigoda, a man who looked like he hadn't smiled since the Eisenhower administration, and probably had opinions about your posture. Fish was weary, cynical, and endlessly quotable, and somehow completely lovable. So, naturally, ABC decided to spin him off into a warm-hearted family comedy. Because who better to raise a house full of energetic foster kids than a guy who sighs at his own shoes? Fish premiered in February of 1977 and ran through June of 1978. Directed by Jeremiah Morris, the series followed Phil and his wife Bernice, played by Florence Stanley, as they became foster parents through the city's PINS program, short for Persons in Need of Supervision, which in sitcom terms meant a group of streetwise teens, precocious kids, and enough canned life lessons to qualify as an after-school special.
You know what a time clock is?
What?
Man is better off dead.
Among the cast were two names worth remembering. A young Todd Bridges, before he became a household name on Different Strokes, played Ernie, the quiet kid with the most sense, and John Cassisi, fresh off Bugsy Malone, brought the volume as Victor, the group's resident tough guy. The tone was all over the place. Instead of dry precinct banter, we got very special episodes with sitcom lighting.
Then I have to take the Flushing line to Main Street.
Imagine Oscar the Grouch suddenly running a halfway house, complete with hug breaks and after-dinner heart-to-hearts.
You haven't seen the kitchen yet.
Denise, not in front of the children.
Critics were mixed. Some appreciated the attempt to humanize Fish, but most viewers just wanted him back in the 12th precinct. Where Barney Miller trusted the audience, Fish often spoon-fed them messages wrapped in kid-friendly chaos. And behind the scenes, it was even messier. During Season 2, Vigoda got into a salary dispute with the producers and missed several episodes. According to Todd Bridges, the network pulled the plug when Vigoda asked for more money for Season 3 than they were willing to pay. The show ended with no finale and no closure, but Barney Miller tossed fans a bone 3 years later when Fish reappeared in the episode Lady and the Bomb. There, we learned the PINS program had been shut down due to government cuts. One kid got pregnant, another got arrested, and Fish, now retired after 38 years of service, was doing what he could from the sidelines. And that was the last we ever saw of him. Fish lasted just 35 episodes, and while the intentions were noble, the execution floundered. The character was built for biting realism, not bedtime stories. Turns out, when you take a fish out of water, sometimes it just belly flops. Number 3. Tabitha, a spin-off of Bewitched, ABC. Lisa Hartman had the hair, the voice, and the magic, so when ABC cast her as a grown-up Tabitha Stevens in 1977, they thought they were conjuring a hit. What they got instead was a scrambled timeline, a reworked cast, and a spin-off that fizzled faster than a faulty wand. Tabitha spun off from Bewitched, the beloved sitcom that ran from 1964 to 1972 and is still a rerun staple today.
Now you stay right here. You have been a very naughty girl, and believe me, there's going to be some serious discussion later.
Okay, Mommy.
But it wasn't just about Samantha twitching her nose. It was about the chemistry between her tightly wound mortal husband Darren, her magical diva of a mother Endora, a lineup of chaotic relatives, and a neighborhood full of busybodies. It balanced domestic comedy and supernatural mischief in a way no one had really seen before, and it worked. In the show's second season, Samantha and Darren's daughter Tabitha was born, and as it turned out, she inherited her mother's powers.
I want to be a butterfly. Okay. Now you won't cry anymore, Amy.
So naturally, ABC decided to bring it back without Samantha, or Darren, or Endora. Just Tabitha, the cute toddler from the original series, now aged up into a 20-something production assistant at a fictional LA TV station called KXLA. The time jump was massive, the explanation was non-existent, and viewers were just expected to smile and nod. The setup was simple, maybe too simple. Tabitha tried to blend into mortal life while hiding her powers. Her boss was Marvin Decker, the cranky but lovable producer played by Mel Stewart, best known as George Jefferson's brother Henry on All in the Family.
Henry, when I was a kid, I was always asking Mom for a brother. You know how poor we was, so all we could afford was you.
But her bigger problem was Paul Thurston, played by Robert Urich, a smarmy, egotistical talk show host and her sometime love interest, even though he hit on anything with a pulse. Good thing Urich redeemed himself a year later as Dan Tana in Vegas. In a classic retcon, Tabitha's brother Adam, originally younger than her on Bewitched, was now older, mortal, and constantly scolding her for using magic. Basically, they turned him into Darren 2.0 with a bad attitude.
Tabitha, please, don't go over to Paul's. He's not going to change his mind about Andy, and you'll only get yourself fired.
Yeah, well, maybe it's worth a chance.
Meanwhile, her Aunt Minerva, who had never been mentioned before, dropped in occasionally to stir up spells and sitcom chaos. And if the setup wasn't chaotic enough, the behind-the-scenes story didn't help. The first pilot was shot in 1976 with a different actress, a different setting, and a totally different vibe. ABC passed, so they rewrote it, recast it, and moved the action to a TV studio, and tried again with Hartman in the lead. This time they got a green light, but not for long. They tried to cash in on Bewitched nostalgia. Dr. Bombay popped in, the Kravitzes showed up, and the credits used actual baby footage of Tabitha from the original series. But none of it could cover up the fact that this version of Tabitha had nothing to say and no real story to tell.
Yes, Tabitha grew up to be a full-fledged witch.
Ratings vanished faster than Andorra on a bad day. The show was canceled after just 11 episodes, ranking 81st out of 104 programs that season. Lisa Hartman's theme song, It Could Be Magic, was catchy, but let's just say the title didn't age well.
Some people got it, some people don't. You'll never know until you try.
Tabitha wanted to modernize Bewitched for the late 70s, but with no core cast, no timeline logic, and no real spark, it ended up feeling more like a knockoff than a sequel. If Bewitched was pure sitcom sorcery, Tabitha was the TV equivalent of a vanishing act that no one clapped for. If you're enjoying this journey through television's most regrettable offspring, smash that like button and drop a comment telling us which spinoff made you shake your head the hardest. And don't forget to subscribe. We've got plenty more TV train wrecks to explore. Number 2, Galactica 1980, a spinoff of Battlestar Galactica, ABC. Remember when fans begged ABC to bring back Battlestar Galactica after it was canceled way too soon? Yeah, careful what you wish for. So what did ABC do with all that backlash? They gave us Galactica 1980, a spin-off that somehow managed to crash harder than the original ever did. The original Battlestar Galactica was ambitious. Too ambitious for late 70s network TV.
There are those who believe that life here began out there, far across the universe.
With its sprawling space opera, massive effects budget, and obvious Star Wars envy, the show debuted in 1978 with huge hype and even huger expenses. ABC loved the ratings but hated the price tag, reportedly over $1 million an episode. So after just one season, they pulled the plug. Enter Galactica 1980, which picked up the story 30 years later, except it also looked 30 times cheaper. Instead of epic space battles, we got earthbound hijinks, flying motorcycles, and plots that felt more like rejected A-Team episodes.
Hey, Troy, notice everybody staring at us back there? I think it's the clothes that's giving them a problem.
Lorne Greene returned as Commander Adama, looking more like a space professor than a battle-hardened leader. And Dirk Benedict? Nowhere to be found, at least until the final episode.
Oh, Felga Carp. 3 against 1. Well, this isn't going to be fair.
Fans had to wade through 9 episodes of budget sci-fi before Starbuck finally showed up. The main heroes were Captain Troy, formerly known as Boxy, Apollo's adopted son, and his partner Dylan. They were sent to Earth to help the humans prepare for a possible Cylon invasion, which apparently required undercover science tutoring, time travel to Nazi Germany, and dodging a cranky news anchor named Jamie Hamilton.
How do you do? I'd like to communicate with the Pacific Institute of Technology.
Kent McCord and Barry Van Dyke did their best as Troy and Dylan, while Robin Douglas played the exasperated journalist Jamie Hamilton, but even their earnest performances couldn't save this cosmic mess. In an effort to appeal to younger viewers, ABC insisted on cramming the show with child characters. Enter the Super Scouts, a group of squeaky clean space kids who basically turned Galactica 1980 into the Brady Bunch in space. ABC aired the show during the 7 p.m. family hour on Sundays, so violence, explosions, and Even shooting Cylons were strictly limited. Standards and practices even banned scenes where trees got blown up. The writers were so boxed in they had to rely on educational plot points, like teaching the Galacticans about baseball with laser bats. Behind the scenes, things were even messier. Scripts were constantly rewritten on the fly, new characters appeared and vanished without explanation, and the show cycled through producers like vipers in a dogfight. At one point, the writers joked that if ratings dropped to 13, they'd finally be canceled. By episode 10, they hit that number and ABC pulled the plug. The one bright spot was the final episode, The Return of Starbuck, which brought Dirk Benedict back for a surprisingly emotional story. It was easily the best episode of the series, but by then it was too little too late. If the original Battlestar was too ambitious for network TV, Galactica 1980 was what happened when that ambition got strangled by budget cuts, censorship, and a dozen too many stage moms. It was the spin-off fans thought they wanted until they saw it. Number 1, Three's a Crowd, spin-off of Three's Company, ABC. Three's Company was a masterpiece of controlled chaos. For 8 seasons, John Ritter's Jack Tripper charmed his way through a minefield of misunderstandings, sexual innuendo, and pratfalls that would have made the Three Stooges proud. The magic was a perfect dynamic. One guy, 2 female roommates, nosy neighbors, and enough mistaken identity to fuel a sitcom for years.
Walk over to the door, stick out your little hand, twist the knob, and open it up.
So when Three's Company wrapped in 1984, ABC had a dilemma. Ritter was TV gold, funny, likable, and a physical comedy genius. The obvious move was to give him a spin-off. The less obvious move? Strip away everything that made Three's Company work and saddle Jack with domestic responsibility.
All we were doing.
We know what you were doing, Jack. Poor little Diane.
What are you talking about? She had the time of her life.
Three's a Crowd picked up right where Three's Company left off. In the finale, Jack moves in with his girlfriend Vicky, a flight attendant played by Mary Carteret. Now they're living together in a stylish apartment above Jack's bistro. On paper, it sounded like growth. Jack went from culinary student to restaurant owner, and from serial dater to committed partner. But Three's Company wasn't about growth. It was about Jack being a lovable disaster who couldn't walk across the room without tripping over a double entendre. Three's a Crowd tried to have it both ways. They wanted Jack to be mature and responsible, but also the same bumbling guy we'd watched for 8 years. That tension made the show feel awkward and confused, like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Enter Vicky's dad, E.Z. Taylor, played by Robert Mandan, a wealthy, uptight businessman who disapproved of their living arrangement and saw Jack as an unworthy man-child. Classic comedy setup, right?
I get the idea. Is it all paid for?
Well, why don't you ask Jack? He insists on handling all our finances. Don't you, Jack?
Well, unfortunately, it mostly made Jack look pathetic. No longer a charming rogue, just a guy begging for approval from his girlfriend's dad. Gone were the built-in misunderstandings of Three's Company. No landlords to fool, no roommates to navigate. Jack and Vicky were just a normal couple, and that meant the writers had to invent conflict from thin air. Most episodes were mild spats or EZ's latest passive-aggressive sabotage. It was like watching sitcom leftovers reheated without seasoning. Ritter still gave it everything. His timing and pratfalls were still a masterclass, but Jack Tripper thrived as part of an ensemble, and without the roommates, the landlords, or the chaos, he felt strangely adrift. Mary Carteret was fine as Vicky, but lacked the comic chemistry Ritter had with Joyce DeWitt or Suzanne Summers. And Mandan's EZ was basically a less funny version of Mr. Roper or Mr. Furley, minus the innuendo and bizarre outfits. Critics were unimpressed, viewers tuned out, and the show's version of sexual tension, well, let's just say it felt more like a forced HR training than flirty banter. After 1 season and 22 episodes, Three's a Crowd disappeared with no finale or fanfare. Just a quiet cancellation that took Jack Tripper with it. This spin-off stands as a textbook case of what not to do. Take a beloved character, strip away his chaotic support system, and expect magic to happen out of loyalty. Instead of growing up gracefully, Three's a Crowd reminded us that not every TV character is built for life after the laugh track. And there you have it, 5 spin-offs that crashed, burned, and left a smoldering pile of disappointment behind. Which one made you cringe the hardest? Drop your pick in the comment section below, and if you're into this kind of retro chaos, hit like and subscribe for more nostalgic deep dives into TV's weirdest misfires. Until next time, this is Remember When.